Hello, everybody. Today we're yet another podcast, True Business Stories, and I'm really pleased to listen to our guest today because he has a very interesting story and a lot of lessons to be learnt, I think, from Andrew's background. And right now he is actually the CEO of the Geelong Food Relief Centre in Geelong, which is probably, for many of us in Geelong, fortunately we don't have had a need for it, but when I read the stats and you find out that they service over 10,000 families and they provide 760,000 meals and over 1 million bits of grocery product, and it's probably gone up since I've done that. But so today's guest is Andrew Schauble, and welcome, Andrew.
Yeah, thanks very much for having me.
Good.
Thank you, Andrew. And we've just been chatting before we start recording. We always soften up our guests before we start recording.
You need to soften me up, yeah.
No. Where did life begin for you? What was your primary school? Where did you start?
So I grew up in Bourne, up in Melbourne, and I went to primary school at All Hallows, which was in Bourne. So it was a lovely little walk off to primary school. And then I went through to Burke Hall and Xavier Senior School. So, yeah, I grew up in Melbourne. I was there probably till I was about 22 or so.
Okay. And your first job?
Well, first job, I worked in a fruit shop, stacking fruit and scraping the specials off the windows each week, and that was in Camberwell. And also, actually, something that wouldn't happen these days is I used to deliver drugs to people from the chemist.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah, you need to add that chemist bit on there.
I think now you'd get sort of probably, it could be taken out along the way, but you just had your little bag and you just ride off and drop them into people's houses. So
that's amazing.
Well, Mark, how many people have we interviewed who did paper rounds?
And worked for Woolies or Coles or McDonald's.
Yeah, everybody had to start somewhere.
Yeah.
So, Andrew, what was next step in your life? So what did you go to uni? What did you do?
No, so I was probably lucky enough that when I was in year 11, I was drafted to Collingwood. And I had said to Collingwood, I mean, they came and then asked me to put myself in the draft, and I said, no, I'm going to stay at school in year 12 and just do school. And in the end, for whatever reason, they got me to put myself in, and I was drafted to Collingwood. Stayed at school year 12 and finished everything that way. And then, I went to Collingwood for 5 years, from 95 to 99. And during that time, I was also studying, so over a longer period. But I've done a Bachelor of Commerce and then a Dip Ed.
Oh, wow. Very good.
And a few other things around sort of English as a second language, etc. But, Collingwood days ended, and then I was at the Swans from 2000 to 2005.
So do you look back with pleasure on your footy career and how it went? And
Yeah, like everyone, there were some kind of big challenges and things you have to overcome, but also some amazing sort of experiences. The Anzac Day game the other day was a kind of a core reminder of how much fun that was.
Yep.
The best memories are standing out in the middle, and you've got 100,000 or 90,000 people standing up, and all their seats flip up. And it's a really interesting thing that when you're there and, then how changes happen. So one time you'd be standing there, all you could hear was a helicopter. And then I think because it was such an amazing experience of silence with 90,000 people, and then they removed the helicopter the next year and you were standing there and it was silent. Which was amazing because there's very few occasions where you feel the presence of so many people and yet there was a crow and that's it. And so events like that were obviously amazing. I mean, at Collingwood, unfortunately, we didn't play in finals while I was there for those 5 years, which is obviously what every player wants to do. But we also, just because it's Collingwood, had a lot of great experiences there.
Yeah. Sorry, Mark. I know that you played 169 games in all, and in 2000 you won the best and fairest at the Swans. Is that right?
Yeah, well, so I mean, there's an interesting part about the highs and lows is that, I was traded at the end of 1999, having played only 13 games in the seniors that year at Collingwood. And in many ways, I had done sort of everything right in terms of training and working hard, but but I think it's just the difference in terms of how you apply yourself around the actual game day, which was important. So went off to Sydney, and look, for me, that was a great change. I was never such a big football person in terms of having that focus of Collingwood, and I really enjoyed the freedom of Sydney, where effectively in my first year, when I wasn't wearing my Swans clothes, I was recognised 3 times.
Yep.
And so being around the beach, so I just felt really free. And yeah, in the end, kind of sort of from a personal perspective, won the best and fairest that year, and sort of just enjoyed and thrived on being free.
So who were the players you were playing with in that time?
So that time was Paul Kelly, Dunkley.
Yep.
Tony Lockett came back and was there at that point. And then as I went through for the later period, of course, all your Barry Hall, your Brett Kirk and Leo Barry, etc.
So some good memories.
Well, yeah. The only reason Mark's asking, Andrew, is his wife is a dyed
I'm an ex-Sydney
Swan supporter, and I noticed that at sitting in my seat at the Premiership stand at the Cats the other day, I looked down and there's a sea of Geelong
and my wife,
and there's Mark's wife in a Sydney Swans jumper. That's why. Anyway, let's get off football and move.
A quick question: how did you juggle the doing the uni work and playing football? You've got to be very disciplined then to work your way through that.
Yeah, I think, a lot's changed now, and I actually think the clubs have really recognised how positive it is on your football. So I know initially, because I'd sort of stayed out of Collingwood while I was studying, when I had my first year at Collingwood, I didn't study. I took a year off, and that wasn't the best kind of way for me to operate, because I think what you need is something outside. I ended up then working almost full-time for an electricity company, just to get into sort of employment that way. And again, that was too much. And I think the perfect kind of balance was part-time study, where you still had, an outlet through university and through different people, but then you could then really focus on football. So I think that actual balance and juggle works really well.
And were you also thinking, one day I will stop playing and I need something?
Yeah, look, I was probably lucky in that that I had some sort of people guiding me and just chipping away. So yeah, I did a 3-year commerce degree in 6 years, and I did a 1-year DPed in 2 years, and so it's just plugging. And before you know it, you finished them, and you've then at least got something to go to afterwards.
That's also called persistence.
Persistence, and determination.
We often talk about that. So football careers come to an end, and you've got to move on. What happened after you gave up football?
So I was always very much a traveller, and every year I would go away for whatever period I could outside of football. Luckily enough, I've been to sort of 55 or more countries, and that was something I always wanted to do. So I actually headed off for the 2000s, via a few places, but to the 2006 German World Cup. And that was an amazing experience, and I absolutely loved it. And then I just stopped and thought, look, I'll just go and live in Germany, in Berlin for a while. So that was the plan. It then sort of slightly changed. So being very open to anything, as I probably generally am, I'd had contact with someone I knew from Australia, and they basically were running a project in Abu Dhabi, which was focused on Emiratisation and getting Emiratis into work. And they'd said, well, you've got a bit of a business sort of background, you've done your teaching, do you want to just come and bring a little bit of something different back into this project that they were doing? And I, of course, thought, oh, yeah, no problems. That sounds good. When can you fly? How about tomorrow? All right, give me 2 days and I'll come. So I was teaching English and learning a bit of German and just hanging out, really. And so I got on a plane, and I was expecting to be there for a month. Went there for a month and was enjoying it. It was all fun and very different. And then so 1 month led into 3 months. Then that project finished, and then they again said, "Well, why don't you stay on and move to Dubai?" And I was having a great time. By then, I'd met a group of great Australians who we were playing football. It was a team called the Dubai Heat. And funny story around that was I actually saw them running in a park, and I was running with a girlfriend who was German. I said, "Oh, that's weird. These people, they're playing a game I know." She had no idea what Aussie rules was. And they're wearing some tops, which were Swans training jumpers. Now, Jude Bolton was friends with the guy who was in this team.
Yep.
And Jude had passed over this. And I went in and I said, "Oh, just what are you doing? What's going on?" And they... and he'd ask, had I ever played? And I just said, "Oh, well, look, I grew up in Melbourne." My actual answer was, I grew up in Melbourne, so I kind of know the game. To which he told me, "Oh, well, actually, their team is full. I should try the other team." So I was like, "Oh, I'm basically 6 months out of playing professional football and thinking this is where I'm at," and
unrecognised.
So I walked off. Now, thankfully, because it was such an amazing group of guys, is that one of the guys he put out an email of which I was included, and one of the guy who's Jude Bolton's friend said, "Well, where did he come from?" And he said, "Oh, he's just some bloke who turned up in the park and asked about coming kick." He said, "What did you say to him? Go play with the dingoes." It's like, what? So thankfully, look, that all turned around, and and we had a great friendship, and also we played in kind of won 4 Asian championships. So in the end, I ended up in Dubai and stayed there for 9+ years.
So Bill and I often talk about sliding door moments. You can go to the left, you can go to the right, and it changes your life. So yours was probably that connection that said, "Hey, do you want to come to Abu Dhabi?" Because you could have just said, "Oh, no, I'll stay in Germany," and who knows where that...
Exactly. It is. It's amazing how... because I was enjoying almost the uni life that I hadn't had because I'd always been playing football, so I was a bit more, kind of serious around things. I was just cruising around on my bike and having a great time. And I was going to Russia in a week or two with a friend. I'd been there different separate times, but I'd loved it. So, and then I was heading off to Switzerland. So, my plan was to actually end up doing a ski season in Austria. But obviously that didn't happen. But look, I was really lucky with my time in the Middle East because, again, experiencing and understanding different cultures was something that was really important for me. After I went from this company, obviously they were a bit wacky in the fact that I ended up with a job there of sort of, come and fly within one day. I ended up with Hay Group, which is a sort of a global consultancy, a management consultancy, and I'd moved to them within about 10 months. And they're now called Corn Ferry. But that was a regional office. And so for that aspect, I ended up in kind of all random countries, which was really nice. I mean, we had obviously the bigger countries we worked with. So UAE, Saudi, Qatar, Bahrain, basically all the ones that Oman, which were sort of close by. But for a while, I was actually looking after all the random ones. And I say random only because in terms of what you'd normally perceive and the amount of business we used to do, it wasn't great. But I used to always find weird projects there. So, I'd go to Iran and then and Palestine and Egypt and Lebanon and Sudan. And so being able to just go in and out and meet people, and you'd be doing some work in Sudan with a group and they'd invite you to a wedding that night. And it was amazing.
Good experiences.
Yeah.
What sort of work were you doing? What sort of projects were you working on?
And this is sort of interesting in terms of, I suppose your perception of yourself, but I came in as a leadership development consultant. Now, I had sort of thought, well, I've never really worked. I mean, I haven't had a proper, in inverted commas, job. But the guy there who was my manager then at that time, he basically saw the value in sport and the leadership that you get through just that team aspect. And so I ended up sort of slotting in, and there was only a few of us at that time. We grew it quite heavily, but basically we used to do a lot of leadership development work around. So that was capability assessment, competency modelling, leadership development, top team effectiveness. So really understanding kind of people and how you can make them more effective.
And how did it translate into dealing with countries that probably didn't understand Aussie rules, or had that sporting side? How did that all...
Yeah, totally. Well, I mean, obviously you're doing it in a business context, but so much of it is relatable from sport to business, and just being able to understand people. I mean, so for a while I ended up as general manager of the UAE and Oman, and within that I had 22 people in my team, of which there were 19 different nationalities.
Wow.
So, and I loved that aspect of, how I interacted with the Palestinian female was different to the New Zealand guy, which was different to there was a man from Syria, and just the way you had to still get across the same message and still all be on the same page, but actually the way that you did that had to be tweaked at times, and that was really interesting, both internally dealing with your own team, but also then how you interacted with clients. There was no use for a lot of clients in some places, just as it wouldn't matter if it'd be the same for Geelong, for businesses, how you interact with some businesses. Providing them with a 50-page report is what's needed. For others, it's actually more about, here's a one-pager, and then I'll sit with you and we'll do a workshop around it, making it kind of being able to implement it.
Good learnings from what you've done, you've continued on with?
Tried to. And look, you learn kind of all along the way, but I think that's probably the biggest thing was that is to see difference and enjoy difference and work with difference to actually make everyone become more effective.
Brilliant.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic, Andrew, because that gives you a different people's perspective than what most would ever have. And I know in the work that Mark and I do in consulting and running workshops that it's really important to understand that everybody is different. We all learn. So, from that amazing background, here you are in Geelong as the CEO of a very important business, which, as I said before, is the Geelong Food Relief Centre. What brought you to Geelong?
So, living in Dubai, and I came back to Australia on a visit and ended up catching up with my now wife. I actually used to live in Sydney for a little while with her brother, and we had 2 children. We now have 3, but we had 2 children at the time in Dubai. And we saw it was time to come back and get closer to family. So in many ways, it was a decision about where do we go, and I think Geelong won out just because of everything it offers. I was kind of quite fortunate. While I was doing my consulting, I'd actually started up a rowing equipment business, and sort of that was based out of Australia. But there were people involved in that, and then as time went on, I ended up sort of basically running that on the side from Dubai as well.
Is that still going?
It is still going, yeah.
Is it Bart Logic?
Bath Logic, yeah.
Bath Logic.
Yeah.
Yep, I did my homework again.
Bathlogic.net. It's but it's basically we have a cleat system which then allows rowers to put share shoes. So very similar to a lot of sports where you actually have your own equipment, and instead you just put a cleat on the boat and people can click.
Well, the analogy is cycling.
Exactly.
Is you got your shoes and they click in, and be an ex-oarsman, as I call it. I know exactly what it means. I did have a look at your video, and I can see why and how it's such a good idea. But so living in Geelong is sort of family. It's a regional town, as you know. It's all sport. It's mad sport, and you've got young kids, and just like my grandkids, I'm off to netball, basketball, this ball and that ball all the time. But why the Geelong Food Relief Centre?
Yeah, so I suppose you hit a point in your life as well. Is that so? We came back in 2015, and my work was very transferable. It was flexible. So 95+% of business was overseas. So I could work anywhere, do anything, and that was all fine. It was going on really well. But yeah, you hit a point of, and particularly after COVID, everyone starts to re-examine what they're doing, and sort of got to the point of saying, well, yeah, what am I doing, and what positive impact am I able to make on society? So sort of stopped and went looking for something within the not-for-profit world, and I had actually done a bit of work. Actually up in Sydney with a homeless charity, and I had been on the board of the Kokoda Track Foundation and done some stuff with Red Kite, which is the Children's Cancer Fund. But I really saw that the homeless stuff kind of struck a chord with me. I would go to a Swans function, and you'd be sitting there talking with the CEO of QBE, and then later I'd be leaving straight from there and sitting on the street gutter talking to someone about where they were going to sleep that night, and that was really grounding. So I saw that was a space that I think there is obviously a lot of need, and that also I could sort of quite well relate to. As things would happen, the role of the CEO at Geelong Food Relief came up, and so I went for that. So, look, it's convenient. It's not that far away from home, but also there's just such a need, and the need is only increasing. So I've been there about 8 months now. There was a real need to interact better with both the community groups we serve and also the community partners and business partners, which we probably hadn't been doing as well as is necessary. Hopefully it's being able to do that. And that's as well, it's almost that extremes that I really like, is that you can go to, this morning I was at the Cottage by the Sea breakfast, and you're interacting with people there who were, a counsellor or whatever the groups might be, and business people. And then I've just come from, one of our mini marts, and there you're seeing people who are actually there kind of collecting food, and if they don't get that food, who knows what they'd be doing tonight. So it's an amazing kind of experience to be able to work in the different spheres of where people are at.
So to the folk that are listening, what do you do? What does the food relief do?
Yeah, and look, I think that's part of what we haven't done well. So Geelong Food Relief has been around for 32 plus years, and really came out of the Pyramid Building Society collapse. But we haven't been able to tell our story that well. We've just been there. We do a lot, but we haven't been able to translate the impact. What that impact is we're able to supply a lot of healthy, nutritious food to both individuals through 2 mini marts. We have a mini mart in North Geelong and one in Geelong. And that's where individuals who have been identified as needing support are able to come in with vouchers and feel normal. So they come in, they get a shopping trolley, they fill up their shopping trolley, and for a 20-point voucher, which is effectively about $20, they will walk out with about $120, $140 worth of food. So that's direct to the individual. We also then work with a lot of agency partners. So we supply free bulk food to about 45 agency partners. And they can range from small groups who just have community pantries, so anyone can just grab it, to places like Outpost, Lazarus House, Christchurch, Bella in Living and Learning, Drysdale Food Bank, all the way down to Colac. So we do G21. And that allows us to provide sort of bulk food to these groups who are doing such amazing work, and they're so in touch and understanding of their communities. And, that brings joy as well, because if we can supply just a small amount of, support them with as much as possible. Now, obviously, then my role is to make that work efficiently as much as possible. But there's obviously a massive task in getting food in. And we, therefore, have to get that from both some of the other agencies, but the bigger ones such as Second Bite, Fair Share, and a little bit from Food Bank. But also we do a lot of the rescue pickups. So we pick up from the Aldi's, Coles, we have the Woolworths stuff come to us. We have wonderful partners in Routley's, La Madra, Geelong Dairy. So all these groups who then support us by providing food, and then we can then get that out to people. Challenge Foods is another one where a lot of these people are also looking for opportunities to support and potentially don't know how. And I think one of the things I really have, this is what I sort of like, is being able to try and connect business with what we're doing, is because business needs to keep operating as business. And we need to make, it's my goal to make it as easy as possible. And if I can help them understand, well, actually, rather than dealing with, 45 individual charities, which might be fine if that's what they want to do, but also they can we can come, we've got big refrigerated trucks, they can load pallets on, and we can then get it out for them
and manage
and manage all of that. And it helps their impact get, to go a lot further.
And who funds you, Andrew? What keeps you, what pays the bills?
Yeah, so we get a lot of kind of donated support. Wherein Glenn Harvey is kind of so amazing, it's kind of hard to be spoken about. So he provides a lot of fruit and veg and other things, and we have to buy a lot of that. And then in terms of actual money, we get a little bit of state government funding. Council funding has been amazing as well. And then we have to obviously raise money as
yourselves. So you do your own fundraising events and things? Or
yeah, correct.
You're working into that?
We're working into that, and I think that's been a bit of a sort of a part that, I mean, we've got a lot of amazing partners as well, the funding groups around Geelong. So there's the Costa Foundation, there's Give Where You Live Foundation, and there's obviously Geelong Community Foundation. There's sort of the three of the big ones. But then some of the others, Connected Communities, etc. There's a lot of really amazing kind of groups who are willing to support the work that we do.
Fantastic.
And and I think that's sort of a bit of the tweak. We need to sort of Bill read out some of the numbers that we do, and actually we haven't been great at sort of capturing and talking about those, because actually they're probably about threefold of a lot of that. And often everything gets referred to around volume, particularly around just food, and then that gets translated into meals. But actually, the more we understand and integrate with our partners, the more we realise kind of the amazing work they're doing, and then how we're supporting that.
So businesses who listen to our podcast, folk that run businesses who listen to it, what can they do to assist? How can they get in touch with you? What are you looking for from the business community?
Yeah, look, I mean, the obvious answer is money is always great, because then we can direct it where we need to. However, those businesses who have either services or actually food, we can absolutely interact with really well and try and see how we can make it work for them. Because a lot of organisations, and again, I've found this to be so wonderful, is that so many people who want to support, but they almost just don't know where and how. So some of it might just be a discussion, is that they can contact kind of me through our website at geelongfoodrelief.org, and to start a discussion about what they want to do. And sometimes it might be, we're dealing with TAC, WorkSafe, Ford, Viva, others, they come and volunteer with us. That is helpful. Of course, the supply of things is really good. Cobram Estate, give us some oil. So there's just sort of always there's parts, and we can make it work. And also, if we can't, we actually have that many kind of groups that we're supporting that we can find what works with them. So we're supplying. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that as well we have to buy for our mini mart. I think we all discovered during COVID that when you go to the supermarket, you want to get what you want to get, and thankfully a lot of us are lucky enough that if we can't, we just drive to the next one. A lot of people we interact with can't do that, so I've definitely made it a core element of what we do, is that we purchase a lot if we can't get it donated. So at the moment we purchase tissues, we purchase sugar, UHT milk, washing detergent, etc., because these are the core things that people need. And if we can't get it donated, well, we have to buy it. And so often I think it's about having a conversation, coming and seeing what we do, and usually people will then, sometimes it's skills. I've had a group out there who are looking at our warehouse. How can we make it more efficient? How can we make it more safe? We have a lot of volunteers who are doing such amazing work. If we can make that just a little bit safer through someone's expertise, and that might be only a few hours to them, but to us, it makes such an impact.
Brilliant.
We talk about best kept secrets.
Yep, this is another secret.
So you have given us a challenge now to make sure that we help you get that message out there. There's no doubt about it. Just getting back now, for small business owners that and from your past experience in your consulting and everything else, so for business owners who are listening to this and they've been through COVID, things still haven't recovered, whether the economy is still uncertain, unfortunately. If you had to give some advice to regional business owners on just, not motivating them, but giving them some hope about the future, what's the sort of advice you'd give to a business owner to enable them to think, yeah, that's good to hear that, and that could help me survive what I'm going through and prosper in the future?
Yeah, look, it's a massive question, and it all depends, of course, on what they do. But I think probably one of the things, and particularly with Geelong and the regional areas that I love, having, again, lived in Melbourne, lived in Sydney, lived in Dubai, and in Germany for a little while, is what is great about the regional areas is it's a lot about connection, and it's a lot about having conversations that potentially you're doing not for the sake of any perfect outcome, but it's just about a conversation, and you just don't know where it will lead. Look, in what we do is that, like I sort of said, sometimes it's just about a conversation, and then you look and you see, oh, wait, Lazarus House, why are you kind of going out and purchasing food when we can actually support you? And it's just because, or Outpost is, I was at an event with them, and basically Amy started talking about why, how they were struggling to find somewhere to have their board meetings, to which I just happened to be there and hear it and say, well, yeah, cool, you can just use our boardroom and just come in and I'll give you the key and the alarm code. And I know that's a slightly different thing around the world that I'm in, but if she wasn't there because she just happened to be there as part of this group having a conversation, is that wouldn't have happened. So now they're able to do that. And I think with small businesses, and I used to find this with my rowing equipment business, is that sometimes it's just being somewhere that then you hear someone have an idea around design, or around kind of, this is how you could do your website better, and it clicks an idea, and then that leads you listening to podcasts. It's another great thing.
Well,
so it's
there's
almost
another word that's called networking too, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just entering yourself into, putting yourself out there and entering yourself into, rather than just I do what I've always done, is actually I'll just keep trying different things and recognise most of them won't work out. That's okay.
But, it's a bit like our podcast, Mark, isn't it?
Yes.
Like, we've done 50 so far. Mm-hmm. We've spoken to 50 people, some of whom we've known, but many, such as today, we don't know. Now, and we've got another 50 to go. I've got a list in here that's keeping us going for another year. Yeah. But we're also out and about. So it's I guess my expression for it, what you've done today is you've gained 2 apostles, right, to go and spread the word.
Spread the word.
That's my analogy. And I think that's important.
It is.
Yeah.
So, Andrew, thank you. And I think if you look back in your life, when you first ran onto the field at Collingwood, I doubt if you'd have thought you'd be here today.
Yeah, well, it's been an interesting journey. Just a side point on that, I did laugh when the Geelong Addy was doing a story about the food relief, and then they kind of realised I was there, and so the next thing they had an article a bit about me, but the photo they choose is actually a photo of me playing on Gary Ablett Senior, and you think
that's
from that
Geelong.
Long ago, and then that's the photo they've used. So
yeah, that's Geelong. So thank you very much, Andrew. Pleasure to meet you, and we will be your apostles, and we will be doing whatever we can to push it.
That's right. Yeah, thank you, Andrew, because I've already made a note here. I've got about 3 functions for you to come to with me to spread your story. And it's been really interesting.
Been fantastic.
And I appreciate your time.
Yeah, and probably just one thing I'd add is that I think for a lot of people who are looking for something to do and to give back, is to think of how they actually want to be able to do that. It might be they have design skills. It might be have some skills, because they can always be used by groups like ours. There are a lot of other great groups out there doing stuff, and maybe it's just about having a conversation to offer it.
Yep.
And
Good advice. Thank you, Andrew.